Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk about the static keyword. So every time we create a new project, we will get this main method as the starting point of our program. And we have three keywords in front of our main method. We have talked about public, which is the access modifier. And we talk about the void, which is the return type. This means we don't want to return anything from our method. But we haven't talked about static. So in Java, we use the keyword static to define a member that belongs to the class type itself rather than a specific instance of the class. In other words, the static member is shared among all of the instances of that class. And we can use static to define variables, methods, blocks, as well as classes. Now, let's take a look at an example on how to use static in our program. Say we are developing an application for an employee management system, and we're gonna need a class to represent all the employees. So let's start by creating the new class inside of our source and com.company package, and let's call the class employee. And hit OK. So this is our new class. Now let's define some member variables for our employee class. We have first name and last name, and mark them as private. Next, let's define the let's generate the getters and setters for first name and last name using the generator inside of IntelliJ. And there are getters and setters for our member field. Next, we need to generate a constructor using the member field, using both first name and last name. Now is the time to define our first static variable. Static variables are better used for representing properties that are shared among all of the instances of this class. Now, in our example, for all of the employees, we have the same company name. So, we can define the company name as a static variable. So I can say private, static, string, company name. So this way, we define a company name as our static variable for the class. Since our company name is a private variable, we will need to generate getter and setter in order to access it outside of the class. So let's give it some space and generate getter and setter and select company name and hit OK. So these are getter and setter for the static variable. Notice that both of them are marked as static. This means that they are static methods. The reason that they are static is because we want to be able to get and set the company name without creating any instances of the employee class. Now let me show you how to access the getter and setter in the main class. So let's switch back to main.java. In our main method, let's first define the company name as a string. So I'll say string name equals ABC. And then we can call the setter and set ABC as the company name. We say employee, which is the class name. And then we can directly call set company name and passing in the name parameter. So this is how we call static method without creating any instances of the employee class. Now we can verify the result by calling the getter and output it to the console. So we can do this by say system.out.println, and we say the company name is plus employee dot get company name. Now we can run this and see if we got ABC output on the console. So let's hit run, and there we go. We got company name is ABC. So now we know how to call static method using the class name directly instead of creating a instance variable. So there are some rules about static method that I want to talk about. Let's write it down inside of a comment block above our getter method. There are three rules that I want to mention about static method. So static method rules. And rule number one, static method can only directly call other static method. Okay? So can only call other static method. That's rule number one. And then rule number two, they can only access other static variables. So can only access static variables. And then rule number three, static method cannot use this or super in any case. So cannot use this or super keyword. The reason for all these rules are mostly because static method doesn't belong to any specific instance of the class. So when you want to access non-static methods or variable, it doesn't know which instance to refer to. And the same thing goes for this and super keyword. It doesn't know which instance to look for. And that's why the usage of them are prohibited in static method. Now, there's one more usage of the static variable that I want to show you. Let's say now I need to assign an ID number to each employee in the company. So let's define it as a non-static private property. So private int ID. Now, instead of setting the ID using a setter method, I want ID number to start from 1 and auto increment as we have more employees. So the first employee ID should be 1 and the second employee ID should be 2 and so on. In order to do that, we can use a static variable to count the total number of employees and assign that total count to the ID. Now let me show you how to do it. Let's first define a static variable for the total count of employees. So private static int count. Let's initialize those to 0. Now let's go to our constructor, and inside of constructor, we can increment our count every time we initialize a new object, right? And then we can give that count number to the current ID. So we do count plus plus, and then we do this dot ID equals count. Now, in order to verify that we getting the ID correctly, we need to first generate a getter for the ID field so that we can access it right in our main class. So we generate getter for the ID field and OK. Now let's switch back to the main class and to verify that we can set ID correctly. Let's first comment out the output from the previous step. And then we want to do is to create some objects for the employee class. So this is employee and this is employee A, and is equal to new employee, and the first name is John and the last name is Doe. So let's create another employee, employee B. This is new employee, and this time is John. Last name is Smith. And then let's create one more employee, employee C, and this is new employee. The first name is Jane, and last name is Smith. Now we can verify that we set ID correctly by output each of the ID number to the console. So A's ID should be 1, and B's ID should be 2, and C's ID should be 3. So we say system.out.println A's ID is plus A.getID. And then let's copy this line and paste it down here. Let's change A to B. And then let's paste it again. And then this time change it to C. And now we can run this and see if we got 1, 2, 3 printed out. So let's click run and give it some time to run. There we go. We got A's ID is 1, B's ID is 2, C's ID is 3. So that's how we get ID to auto increment using a static variable to count all of the employees. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.